everyone. Let's start the panel today. My name is William. I'm an investment manager at Sora Ventures. We're a Web3 VC firm based out of Taipei. And without further ado, why don't we start with a round of intros? Jason, you want to go first?
Sure. I'll go first. My name is Jason. Good to see everyone here. I'm Chief Innovation Officer at OKX.
Hi, I'm BMAN from ABC Capital. We have been crypto for 11 years and have been investing in crypto and especially in blockchain, in Bitcoin and Bitcoin ecosystem for in the last 2 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Williams. I'm the founder and the general partner of Sora Ventures. We are a newly launched early stage Bitcoin focused fund.
Trevor Owens, GP at the Bitcoin Frontier Fund, also the co-founder of Pizza Ninjas and host of the Ordinal Show.
Cool. Without further ado, why don't we start with the first question of the day with Trevor. Compared to other blockchain ecosystems, what are Bitcoin's unique strengths and weaknesses? And how do you see its competitiveness, for example, with Solana, with Ethereum, especially in the DeFi, NFT space, etc.?
Yeah, so when I look at different layer 1 blockchains, what I really like is the chains that have the trade-offs dialed all the way up. And so if you're familiar with the blockchain trilemma, which is, like scalability, decentralization, speed, this kind of a thing, Bitcoin is a bit slower, I would say, than Solana. I mean, it's 10-minute blocks compared to, I think, 400 milliseconds. But at the same regard, it's very easy to run your own Bitcoin node, and that makes the network have the ability to be extremely decentralized and therefore allows, more security that your assets are going to be safe. And so I think that ends up being a big benefit to Bitcoin and why the liquidity base on Bitcoin is so significant, because now you look at the the big funds, the ETFs and things like that, they want to be on Bitcoin because it's so decentralized and secure. If you're wanting to save money and you're just wanting to hodl it, then you're going to choose Bitcoin. If you want to do something like on-chain gaming or sort of lower value use cases that require a large number of users, then you're going to do something like Solana. And I think Ethereum is kind of stuck in the middle right now. It's not the fastest. It's not the most decentralized. It was a leader in sort of Web3 and innovation. But now a lot of those innovations are being moved over to Bitcoin with ordinals, and a lot of those innovations, of course, the templates are being copied over on Solana. And so I think Bitcoin is in a very, very secure place in terms of it has its corner of the market that no other chain is going to be able to surpass. And of course, it also has the most users. It has the most amount of capital. And so Bitcoin is like a very, very ideal place for builders because you just have a high chance of reliability that's still going to be here 10, 20, 30 years, where some of the newer layer ones, maybe it's going to be exciting for this year, but we don't know, is it going to still have the same momentum and growth in the following year? But we know Bitcoin is going to be sort of the North Star that's going to always have steady growth that moves the market.
Kevin, you want to go next?
I cannot put it any better than that. That was absolutely beautiful. You probably want to move on to your next question.
Okay. Let's start with Kevin then. I think this one is definitely for everyone. So, which Bitcoin applications or protocols within your portfolio do you believe have the potential to become the foundational Lego blocks of the Bitcoin ecosystem, and what makes them stand out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really bullish on staking and liquid restaking. One of the first deals that Sora Ventures invested into was Lorenzo Protocol, and I believe Lorenzo Protocol was able to be third in the very first staking component for Babylon. And I believe that the ability to kind of bring those LSTs onto other chains, and now we're not just seeing EVM components of this, right? We're also seeing MoveVM starting to kind of bring LSTs and LRTs to their ecosystem as well. So I think it kind of starts there, right? I truly believe it starts kind of with Babylon, and then with the LSTs, and then with the LRTs, and it's just kind of growing this massive ecosystem that's going to enable DeFi, not just on Bitcoin, but also on some other chains that have been kind of craving for Bitcoin to come.
Yeah, we actually invest in a lot of Bitcoin ecosystem projects, about 10 or 15 of them. We invest in Babylon, Unisat, Fractal, Lorenzo, Solve, BitLayer, etc., and UTXO stack. Among them, I think Babylon might be the foundation, of yield or staking in Bitcoin ecosystem. So I may say, Babylon will be one of them. Another one I want to mention is UTXO stack. UTXO stack is the first, UTXO project and portfolio in ABCDE, and they are now pivoting into Lightning Network staking. And I think there are a lot of potential in Lightning Network, and especially in payments. So if you unleash the payment potential of Bitcoin, when Satoshi first write a white paper about Bitcoin, it's like a P2P, payment solution or like currency solution. And so Lightning Network has a lot of potential, and UTXO stack is the best player in UTXO and the Lightning Network right now. So I would say these two portfolio are, my favorite.
We do have a ventures arm. I'm not on the ventures arm, but I know we do and have invested in a lot of the projects that you've mentioned. What we do focus on, at least from the product side, is how do we bring some of the innovations and some of the cool stuff that these teams are working on to users, right? And we mentioned Babylon a couple times, and the sort of the staking, restaking stack, and all that stuff. That's happening, right? That's happening. It's now mainnet, and now we're live, and users are actively participating. I think that's very exciting, right? And that's where that first step is. Hopefully, does actually unlock sort of DeFi capabilities and interest in on top of the Bitcoin stack. So we'll see. I'm very, very curious to see how that plays out.
Cool. So yeah, we have 80 different portfolio companies in the Bitcoin ecosystem. We invest very early, and then we place many small bets. We don't like to pick favorites. We don't like to have a favorite child at our fund. So I will give a shout out to some of the ones that have been active in Singapore here and doing great stuff. So we're an investor in Ordzar, who hosted the Ordinals Summit 2 days ago. So we'd love to see our portfolio companies doing that. We're also an investor in BitLayer, Xverse, Oviado, Liquidium. Those are some of the companies that I've seen here active in the past week. So, hats off to those teams.
I want to touch off more on BMAN mentioning payments, and then also Kevin mentioning, restaking, etc. There's, you can also, you used to could only, buy, hold, and sell Bitcoin, right? But until around like Lightning Network, etc. So how critical is that, to Bitcoin applications, and do you see it as the key infrastructure for Bitcoin's growth? Or are there other meta protocols or application types that will play a bigger role? For example, like there's a lot of meta protocols like Ordinals, Tap, etc.
So you mean the key applications in Bitcoin ecosystem, right?
Yes.
I think the first killing features of crypto is finance. It's all about finance in crypto, especially when you have assets, which is over 1 trillion FDV. I think it's all about finance. So in terms of finance, I think we have to solve two problems in Bitcoin. First, how to make Bitcoin more liquid, and second, how to make Bitcoin yield-bearing. So these are the two potential application scenario I can see in the next few years. So in terms of liquid, there are a lot of applications like Web BTC. They are making Bitcoin more liquid on chain, and also there are a lot of like lending and restaking projects that are making Bitcoin more liquid. And second, yield-bearing. How to make Bitcoin yield-bearing, and we can see a lot of native yield-bearing scenario for Bitcoin, like we mentioned Babylon, and there are going to be more and more yield-bearing scenario for Bitcoin. So I think these are the two major applications for Bitcoin in the next 1 or 2 years. Yeah.
I think probably the biggest kind of catalyst for Bitcoin in a really long time was kind of the rise of ordinals. it's really the first time that kind of goods and services are kind of being paid with BTC, which was amazing. So Trevor was super early and always hounded like, guys, this is going to be massive, right? And it's just the seamless ability to just use your Xverse wallet and be able to use your native Bitcoin to be able to purchase a Pizza Ninja, for example. I mean, like, that is something that we just never thought would actually happen. And now with Runes, you're seeing all of this kind of R&D happen with stable coins directly on Runes. And I think that's just kind of starting this massive flywheel that we're just sitting here and talking about, is Lightning Network going to be the major catalyst for payments, or is it just going to be Bitcoin itself natively without the need for Lightning? I think both can be true. Early days, Ordinal's bot had a Lightning QR code where you can pay using Lightning to be able to kind of inscribe assets on Bitcoin. And now we're kind of seeing just Xverse, Magic Eden, and all these wallets. They might not have native Lightning support, but you're still able to transact very easily and seamlessly just using your mobile wallet, which I think is super bullish for the Bitcoin space.
At OKX, we've supported Lightning for, I don't know, this is like 4 years now. This is on the exchange side. And, Lightning is still challenging, right, to use. I think even for crypto native, it feels different with the invoice system and everything. We've explored adding Lightning into our wallet also in hopefully a non-custodial way, and it's, again, very challenging. So I think there's still a little bit of ways to go before Lightning really makes that breakthrough. And maybe, to your point, maybe we don't quite need it. Maybe on-chain payments might come back and be the thing. But we're also in this period where fees are relatively low, right? And maybe that is not sustainable. So I think a lot more work still needs to be done on Lightning. But there are things like Taproot assets and things that we're trying to see how we can innovate on top of the Lightning stack too. So a lot of exciting stuff to come.
Yeah, I like Lightning a lot. I think it has a lot of challenges, though, and I think that the challenges stem from a few things. One is really the way that state channels are set up is that you need people to route liquidity for you, right? And the thing is that there's not a lot of high volume of payments with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, the major use cases are hodling and degeneracy, like trading JPEGs and trading shitcoins, this type of thing. This is where most of the activity in the entire space is right now. And I think that, in order for people to host a node to be able to route liquidity, there needs to be enough fees for them to earn for it to be profitable to perform that activity. Some of the things I'm most excited about when it comes to Lightning Network is people who are looking at building decentralized exchanges that can leverage Runes to enable people to do their shitcoining on Lightning, because I think that would actually lead to a much higher volume of transactions going back and forth, which could then lead to a higher incentive for routing liquidity. And so I think traditionally the Lightning ecosystem has been very against shitcoins, ideologically, which is understandable. I'm not a big shitcoiner myself. I don't think so. Maybe some of the Lightning people might think I am. But, it's all about getting the results that you want, right? And so if there's a big audience of people who like to do this kind of gambling, and instead of going to the Marina Bay Sands, they want to do it on Bitcoin, and that's going to help to fix this liquidity routing problem. And I think that we should do that. I think it's a good idea. Ultimately, when I look at the payments use case, I think it's going to be one of the last use cases, at least peer-to-peer, like one person. I think it'll be one of the last use cases on Bitcoin to gain mass adoption, and here's why. And I think that there's other forms of payments, like maybe machine-to-machine or gaming-based payments that we're starting to see get more traction on Lightning before we're going to see, pay for your coffee in Bitcoin by scanning a QR code. Looking at like the Web 2 payment space, for example, WeChat Pay needed WeChat to be successful, right? Without WeChat Pay wouldn't have gained such massive overnight adoption. When we look at PayPal needed eBay to get adoption. Okay, if you read the early days of the PayPal story, they pivoted many times. First, they were payments over using Palm Pilots, and then they pivoted into using email and found eBay as like their sort of growth hacking secret. If you look even further back, eBay needed Beanie Babies, okay, to become successful. The first thing that was ever sold on eBay was a collectible Pez dispenser. And so, you know, ordinals in some ways, you could compare them to Beanie Babies, right? Like some of them, it's kind of like, you know, some of them are great art that will last the test of time, but others are just collectibles that maybe they go up and they go down, and probably 95% of them are not going to be worth anything in many years. But still, it's about what is the path to getting that adoption. And so I think that the ability to trade JPEGs or shitcoin or do whatever you want over the Lightning Network will probably be the tip of the spear into getting into those like more beneficial to society payments use cases.
Just to add quickly, there is the point about activity on Lightning also leads to your point about Bitcoin being a yield-bearing asset, right? Like it actually, those fees become, you know, a sort of incentive to run a Lightning a node or have capital in your Lightning node. We actually, this is last actually, I don't know what the latest data is. We had the largest Lightning node capacity at OKX at the last time I checked. This was just maybe a month ago, or whenever Nashville was, Bitcoin Nashville was. And that is just capital sitting there, right? There's nothing that happens with it. We would love to see, you know, some yield or something happen. And so seeing Lightning activity would be really awesome for our space too.
Can we use OKX Web3 wallets as the Lightning payment wallet?
Not yet.
When?
No. So because OKX wallet is a self-custodial wallet, right? And if we want to run, it's very hard to do a self-custodial Lightning node within your wallet, right? You have to, like you mentioned state channels, you mentioned channel management. There's so much to do such that your assets, you don't want to manage channels, I'm sure, right? Like on your phone or anything like that doesn't really make sense. And so you would have to rely on a Lightning service provider, someone to help you manage liquidity and provide that. That's not self-custodial anymore, right? So that's not a route that we are comfortable taking. But there are companies like Breeze is offering a SDK solution that runs the node in the cloud for you. You're still relying on, you're making some trust assumptions, but it's getting there. I think there's some better UX improvements coming down the pipe, so maybe in the future.
Okay, you can also make it centralized way, like integrate.
But that's the whole point, is we don't want to make it centralized, right? The wallet is not centralized. It's you are managing your own assets. If you want to centralize, just use our exchange, right? Like that's a centralized alternative. Yeah.
I'm using OKX as wallet right now, so.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, I guess OKX did achieve mass adoption, but, you know, in terms of Bitcoin, right, you know, you saw ordinals, and then earlier this year you saw runes, and then last year there were a bunch of Bitcoin L2s that popped out of nowhere, right? You know, how would you describe the current stage of the Bitcoin ecosystem? Because I remember earlier this year, you know, VCs were, you know, jumping on the latest projects, like, I wouldn't say throwing money around, but there was abundant liquidity in terms of, you know, funding, right? So how would you describe the current stage, and how far are we from mass adoption, and when do you actually anticipate like Bitcoin spring to arrive? Why don't we go with Jason first?
I think so Bitcoin itself has, I think, reached a, maybe not massive, but a very solid state of adoption, right? What you're talking about is the stuff that's being built on top of Bitcoin. When does that get mass adoption, right? Like, okay, so we're early, right? We're very early. We come out, Trevor, you and I have done panels, and it's like every few months we check in, and it's like, people are like, oh, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And I'm like, dude, you know, it's only been a few weeks since the last time we talked. Nothing's really changed. But I think, you know, there are things like fractal Bitcoin now, where people are really experimenting and doing things with, you know, Cat20 and things like that. These are things that need to happen for us as I'm talking about this frontier or emerging Bitcoin activity, to figure out what actually sticks and what actually works and what's meaningful. For our wallet team, we're spending a lot of time trying to bring these things to market so users can actually play and touch them and let us know what people think. I think that's the only way we actually know, and without doing and rinsing and repeating this cycle, we won't find out, but we're still early in that.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin has been an ecosystem only since last year, right? Um, After Ordinals came out in March last year. So it's only like 1 year and a half. It has already been, a lot of things happening in Bitcoin ecosystem. So I am really optimistic about Bitcoin ecosystem right now, especially in Bitcoin 5. As I mentioned, there are a lot of innovations coming out in terms of how to make Bitcoin more liquid and more yield-bearing. We can see more and more, innovation in the next 1 or 2 years after like Babylon and all the restaking is live, and you can build a lot of stack over that. So I would say we will see Bitcoin 5 is the next Bitcoin summer, or the DeFi summer. I think the DeFi summer 2.0 will be BTC 5. So I think that is going to be a big step in the next 1 or 2 years.
I think for the first time ever, a lot of normies actually know what Bitcoin is, right? And I know we're talking about mass adoption in terms of the applications directly built on Bitcoin, but we also have to consider mass adoption in terms of mindshare, because you see the Bitcoin ticker on MSNBC on every single news channel when they're talking about the stock market. You see the Bitcoin ticker there, right? So from one perspective, it's the mind share of Bitcoin globally. I think we're definitely reaching absolute mass adoption from that perspective. And the second thing is, yes, the Bitcoin ecosystem is super, super young, and a lot of the initial infrastructure just wasn't there in the very beginning. So a lot of founders didn't know exactly what to do. And now we're seeing all of these L2s that are locking up so much Bitcoin, right? So it's the first time that you're seeing like thousands and thousands of Bitcoin that's actually being locked up. And it's not just retail. We're talking about institutions, and we're talking about whales and miners as well. So I think we're starting to kind of hit that hockey curve in terms of the application level, but in terms of mind share, I do think we have reached global adoption.
The bull run is coming, guys. Next year, I think, will be an exciting year, if not the end of this year. 200K next year, guys, maybe higher. Hope you guys have been buying Bitcoin. But no, I think that we probably have no idea what mass adoption is even going to look like, or how to define what mass adoption is for Bitcoin, whether that means everybody paying for coffee in Bitcoin, or whether it means everybody putting most of their net worth in Bitcoin, or whether it means the underlying financial infrastructure of the world being on Bitcoin, or every major AAA game having assets on Bitcoin. We don't know. It could be any of these things.
Every country having a strategic reserve in Bitcoin.
Yeah, it could be every president in the world raising money for their campaign on Bitcoin. There could be so many different things, and so I think as long as the next bull run is coming, and it's coming soon, I think we'll all be okay.
What was that? Trump yesterday? Was it yesterday? He
bought a cheeseburger with Bitcoin at
Upkey, right? Yeah,
New York.
Awesome.
I think the meme coin burger or something went to like 3 million market cap overnight. I missed that, but my friends showed me. But yeah. Thanks for the insight. I think one outstanding thing that everyone has on mind, and I'm asking this on every panel, is there's a drastic difference between the East and the West when it comes to the Bitcoin ecosystem, right? If you ask someone from the West last year, what are they excited about within the Bitcoin ecosystem, they would probably say like no monkeys, like Bitcoin puppets, pizza ninjas, for example. But if you ask people in China, they're going to be like, oh, ordi, sats, rats, etc., right? So what roles do Asia and the West differ within the Bitcoin landscape, and both from an institutional and retail perspective?
Maybe I'll jump in first. I live in the U.S., and coming here, I don't come to Asia that often, but coming here to Asia this time, just last night I was at dinner with a whole bunch of Bitcoin builders too, more on the fractal side and learning about all the stuff that's happening there. I think that to me is almost like Bitcoin adjacent for now, almost like a Bitcoin testnet or something. But I see a lot of interest on that stuff. I don't hear any of that in the U.S., right? In the U.S., we're still very much focused on this there's policy stuff, there's institutional stuff. It's just very two different worlds, and I'm sure these gentlemen have much better on-the-ground insights than I do.
Well, I think Asia used to be the center of crypto when Bitcoin was really cheap. So actually, the Asian community bought a lot of Bitcoin at the price of like a few hundred. I bought my first Bitcoin when it was like $400. So there are a lot of Bitcoins in Asia. So it seems like, the big Bitcoin ecosystem project in the West are coming to Asia for TVL and for users and for rails and for, building up ecosystem. So I think for Bitcoin ecosystem, Asian is more like the center of TVLs and the miners and the community, and the West is more like a lot of tech innovations like Babylon, like BMAN, like OPCat, and also there are a lot of great PhDs and researchers in the West. So I think ABCD is more like the bridge between the East and the West, that we can make the innovation in the West get massive adoption in Asia.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Honestly, right now, it seems like a majority of the founders that I've been speaking to have been from the East. And they're really pushing the boundaries, and they're looking to move very quickly. I think ABCDE's name is always up there in terms of, funds that are investing into a lot of the companies that are coming out of the East. Most recently, we also invested into Echo Protocol, which was able to, I believe, lock up like 2,000 Bitcoin, for example. So it really does seem like a lot of the more recent kind of founders are coming from the East. They're able to go to market very quickly, and they're also able to get TVL very quickly, which has been a little bit different than kind of in the past.
Yeah, I think that I agree. Like the Asia community is much bigger on the fungible tokens, right? Like with as Jason mentioned, or Jason, I forget which one of you, but you said like in the West it's like the NFTs, and then in the East it's like Sats, Rats, already, But I think that in the future, the Asian market is very big, especially when it comes to entertainment. So like, there's not a single like Hollywood studio in the U.S. that doesn't think about China or try to comply with the restrictions in China when they launch a new movie, right? And so I think that the sort of like what you see in Korea with like the K-pop, K-dramas, Squid Games, Parasite, like Asia is becoming much more influential when it comes to culture, when it comes to media and entertainment. And I think that's the angle for what we're going to see with NFTs. Like if you've seen recently, Doodles premiered a movie at the Toronto Film Festival. Hopefully, Other Side, the Boy Metaverse, will be finished sometime soon. Like the sort of like IP angle to this space, I think, is finally going to have a big run-up in the next cycle. And I think that the integration with Asia is going to be absolutely essential for the most successful brands.
Thank you, Trevor. The last question here would be, I know you have around like 80 portfolio companies, right? Kevin, I know you're still actively deploying. ABCD and OKX Ventures are basically in every cap table in the Bitcoin space. So, this trip to Token 2049, are you currently meeting or investing in new projects, or is it meeting with porcos? And, what kind of project excites you these days? Do you see more devs, builders working on Bitcoin ecosystem compared to last year?
Maybe you guys go first.
I'm not on the venture side. Someone over here start.
Yeah, we recently did Echo Protocol, as Kevin mentioned. Echo Protocol is the #1 restaking project in Move ecosystem. They have already on board 2,000 Bitcoins, and I think they are the bridge to move Bitcoin into Move ecosystem. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And we are still actively deploying capital in Bitcoin and in all kinds of tech infos. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you're building something exciting in Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a bunch of kind of newer faces coming into the space. And I think a lot of the really interesting projects are companies that are looking to kind of bridge the gap between Solana and Bitcoin, and then the Move ecosystem and Bitcoin, which are kind of two massive gaps right now. We're seeing a lot of EVM kind of R&D and EVM layer 2s. We also invested into Nexio, Bitcoin rollup powered by MoveVM, which is something that's also very interesting for us. So I think the things that I'm really interested in now are kind of the counter opportunities, right? We've seen kind of the EVM compatible layer 2s kind of play out. So I'm really interested in kind of some of the other ecosystems that haven't really been looked at. And for Sats Ventures, we always want to invest early, and we want to be one of the first checks in.
Yeah, I think obviously like token this year has been incredible, right? Like I think there's like 700 side events. Like clearly there's a lot of energy in the broader crypto space. I think when it comes to Bitcoin, specifically L1, I think there's a little bit of a plateau right now. Like a lot of the low-hanging fruit has been plucked and some of the juice has been squeezed and made into delicious fruit juice. But what I'm looking forward to, I think this fall, is like a lot of the developments with the different Bitcoin L2s. It seems like a lot of the Bitcoin L2s are close to mainnet, going to mainnet. Of course, Fractal has had a lot of buzz around it. BitLayer Stacks is going through a big Nakamoto upgrade. So there's a lot happening for the L2 space, and I think in the L1 space, we're still sort of like looking for what that next thing is going to be, and maybe that next thing is OpCat, which is why a lot of people are excited about Fractal, because they get to test and work with these opcodes before they go onto layer 1. But I think, like every technology goes through like growth phase, plateau, growth phase, etc. So we're just in a little bit of like a lot of the low-hanging fruit has been plucked on L1. L2s are going at the same time and doing their thing, and they're coming with big releases this fall. But what goes around comes around. We're going to see some more innovation on L1 and the next hype thing probably in a month from now. So.
I think your chart also missed the down phase, right? We also need a healthy shakeout in some of these experimentations, and look, it's gonna come, right? Look, you guys know how this stuff works. But for us, it's like, how do we take all the innovation, all the efforts that people, and all the cool stuff, the new stuff that people are building, how do we productize that and bring that to market, right? Like that's our role, is to help bridge what you guys are investing in and our ventures team is investing in. How do we bring that to the user so that they can actually play and use it? And today, Fractal is that hot thing today, and I think we are, the team mentioned at least, that we are one of the only 2 wallets that support that today. And so, we're moving fast along with the stuff that's coming out to market, and so that's what we want to do, is support these projects as they go live and hit mainnet and do their thing.
So Jason, when are we going to get more runes on OKX?
No comment on that one. I'm sorry, buddy.
Okay, that was actually the last question. Thank you for all the panelists who are showing up today. Thanks for CKB for organizing such an amazing event. So why don't we give a round of applause for everyone.